Good evening and thanks for joining us on the Week in Review. I'm Nick Blumberg. Community members cry foul after federal agents drag a teacher out of a daycare.
They have crossed a line. Our schools, our libraries, our churches should be safe places for our children.
Community members are calling for the teacher's release, saying she had a valid work permit.
Have there been uses of force that have been less than proper?
No, all uses of force have been more than exemplary.
Not so, says a federal judge who slaps tight restrictions on immigration agents' use of force.
We're not going to continue to balance budgets off the backs of working people. There's a better pathway forward.
Mayor Brandon Johnson defends his budget proposal as alders force a special meeting over potential cost-cutting measures. Meanwhile, the city's watchdog hits Johnson again over the mayor's gift room. Congressman Chuy García makes a surprise announcement that he won't run for re-election, and there's a successor waiting in the wings. And travelers brace for mayhem as the FAA restricts air traffic amid the record-long government shutdown. And now to our Week in Review panel. Joining us are our own Matt Masterson of WTTW News, Melody Mercado of Block Club Chicago, Hillary Gowans of the Chicago Tribune, and Patrick Fingston of the Illinois Political Newsletter. Let's get right to it. Thank you all for being here. So Hillary, we just heard that parent at the daycare where the teacher was detained this week say agents crossed a line. Do you agree with her?
Well, you know, we've weighed in a lot at the Tribune editorial board on the immigration enforcement issue, and most recently we touched on this story too. And what we wrote is essentially that immigration enforcement and daycare are incompatible. And you kind of have to wonder at this point, I mean, if you're the Trump administration, what does a win look like here? If they're smart, they need to be thinking about an exit strategy. Even better would be if they started opening up a dialogue again about immigration reform that refocuses on making it easier to migrate here legally, and still keeps the border secure. But this can't go on.
But the problem here is they're not being smart about it. They're playing to their base. They're playing as far right as humanly possible. They want to wage as much chaos in the streets as they can. That's the win for these guys. Bovino's becoming a star in right-wing circles because of this. This is exactly what they want. They want chaos. They want to embarrass Democrats. They want to embarrass blue cities. And as bad as it makes them look to us, who may look at this with any sort of critical eye, the right's loving it.
Well, I mean, to that point, Melody, does it feel like going inside a school is the sort of moment that might galvanize even people who support stricter enforcement to speak up here?
Well, I think the narrative from the Trump administration has been consistently that they're going after the worst of the worst. And I think the video showing officers dragging out a teacher that works there is not fulfilling their narrative of the worst of the worst. So I would argue, again, it's hurting the Trump administration, but again, still playing to their base of the really extreme right.
Well, you know, Matt, among the many ongoing cases you've been following amid Operation Midway Blitz, there's been Judge Sarah Ellis's efforts to rein in immigration agents, specifically when it comes to use of force. There was a day-long hearing this week. Tell us about some of the testimony we heard.
Well, you mentioned an exit strategy. There's clearly no plans for that whatsoever. These Border Patrol and ICE agents don't feel that they're doing anything wrong. They feel that they are abiding by these orders that are restricting their use of tear gas, of rubber bullets, of pepper balls, that they're only using them in these extreme circumstances, even though videos clearly show that a priest standing on the street with his arms outstretched is apparently worthy of being shot with pepper balls multiple times, or parents trick-or-treating with their kids. So Ellis, of course, has issued this preliminary injunction, extending her temporary restraining order. Is that going to make any change here? The restraining order and the preliminary injunction are similar in merit. The difference is the length of time that they're going to last. But they already felt that they were abiding by this temporary restraining order. So now that this is just in place longer, is that going to make any changes going forward in the streets where these immigration enforcement efforts are happening? It doesn't seem like it. Greg Bovino testified that all the use of force that's gone on under Operation Midway Blitz has been exemplary, more than exemplary. Judge Ellis obviously disagreed, but that hasn't changed anything that's been going on over the last month. And with this order in place now going forward, is it going to change anything? It's very unclear at this point.
Yeah, we just saw a bit of the video of, Commander Bovino, tackling someone, and he basically said in court this week that no, that wasn't a use of force.
It was just an arrest. It's just a use of force. I'm sorry, it's not a use of force.
Right.
That's what you got to do to make an arrest. That's completely justified, even if the person wasn't resisting. They were following orders to back up. Whatever they need to do to bring people in, they're going to do it. They've made that very clear.
Yeah, and I mean, we also got to hear some of Bovino's recorded deposition, and he said sort of this notion, among other things, that the use of force has been exemplary. Hillary, what stood out to you from what we saw from Bovino this week?
Well, I think that what stood out, I mean, it's more of the same, and everyone here has touched on that. Both sides are digging in. I think that's to regular people's detriment. I think in other cities you've seen people, even bitter political enemies, try to come together and find some sort of resolution, whether you think that's realistic or not. I mean, at some point, something's got to give.
The problem here is that what we're seeing from the leadership, whether it's Bovino himself or from the missives we're getting from DHS in Washington and Tricia McLaughlin, the DHS spokesperson, who is an armed habitual liar at this point, it's not just fiction, it's science fiction that we're getting from the federal government today on what's happening in the streets. That should scare all of us, that we can't trust what's coming from the federal government. Thank God for the journalists in this city, the people who are pulling out their cell phones that are able to capture what's happening so that we're not just getting one side of the story. Because in most cases, right, we found generally police to be believable in our lives. Not so much right now.
Yeah.
I think one thing that particularly stood out is that we've been seeing statements from DHS and Bovino trying to paint these narratives that we're finding out in this deposition that he did, that one of those narratives was actually not true, where he said that he deployed tear gas after he was hit in the head with a rock by a protester. He then admitted during the deposition that that is not actually what happened.
Yeah, here's a bit of that still of him actually tossing the tear gas. Please go ahead.
Yeah, and so I think it's, again, just points to the importance of documenting everything and having all the journalists that are here in Chicago and the people that send us photos and videos that show that the narrative that DHS and Bovino have been painting of Chicago, of protesters, is just most of the time not true.
Yeah. Even with a complete lack of video of any rock being thrown at him, he repeated under oath during this deposition for days that this rock was thrown, that's the reason he did it. It took days and days and days of questioning before he finally did admit that wasn't the case.
Can I just add before we move on that they had an opportunity to really do something important here. When they came in and said, we're going to go after the worst of the worst, come in, show us your stack of detainers, show us your stack of warrants, tell me the bad people that you're going to go get. And go get them. Mm-hmm. We'll be cheering for you on the street corners. Don't go pick up an abuela in Little Village just because she's brown. This is just bypassing not only their laws that govern them, but they're bypassing the Constitution at times. And it just, even as someone who writes and leans to the right, I'm crazy watching this happen in real time.
Well, and it's interesting too, sort of to this point of the various narratives swirling around. We heard Judge Ellis say that the body camera is your friend because this will help prove out some of these claims. But you have to wonder, is that really the point, or is it sort of this, kind of this sort of social media narrative that they're trying to create, that they want these videos, that they want folks out there to, in the base to see these things?
I think the truth will set you free. I don't know that other people would agree with that. That's all I would say on that, I guess.
Yeah, well,
they dispute portions of the video that seem fairly clear, and Judge Ellis talked about this yesterday when she was giving her order as well. But some of the body camera video, they'll dispute what they said in the video. They said, I said, get him. A Border Patrol agent was saying, I said, get them, not hit them, hit them. Judge Ellis said, no, you said hit them. It was very clear. They said they were pulling shields off of people that had nails in them. There wasn't much evidence of that. They destroyed these shields soon after they recovered them. But even when there are these videos that seem to show something clear cut, they'll still dispute what's going on in there.
Well, Matt, there was also legal action this week over conditions at the Broadview immigration facility. What are the details there? So
Judge Robert Gettleman issued a temporary restraining order in that case today after several detainees testified through a separate all-day hearing on Tuesday about these inhumane conditions, that they're crammed into holding cells with over 100 other people. The lights are on 24 hours a day. There's no beds. People are sleeping in chairs or on the floor. There's no showers. It's a facility that's supposed to hold people for no more than 12 hours, and people have said they've been held there for 12 days. The temporary restraining order that's now in place is supposed to remedy these. And today, during a status hearing, government attorneys said that ICE is taking steps to fix this. They've ordered beds. They are guaranteeing that detainees have the access to their legal counsel, which was what spurred this lawsuit, that they claimed that they couldn't talk to anyone. But it, again, took days, or a full day of testimony from people who were in there for days and days and days to get to this point. And the attorneys who are representing him, who brought this lawsuit, they're still contesting that anything has changed. It's only been 2 days, while the government attorneys are saying, yes, we're making these fixes. The attorneys representing these detainees have said, we've seen nothing yet.
And I think it's important to note that nobody's been allowed into that facility.
Right.
There's been clergy members, there's been congressmen, there's been Illinois senators that have tried to get access to this facility to really try to look at the conditions. And so I think one of the major arguments as well is, okay, you're saying you're making all of these changes, but how will we know if nobody lets us in to actually look around?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting too. I mean, this isn't meant to be a long-term facility, and you have to imagine immigration officials knew this before Operation Midway Blitz. You know, why not try to stand up something more suitable?
Well, this is one of the downsides of the Trust Act that's in effect in the state right now, is they can't ship these people who are in custody to any state jail, any county jail, anywhere in the state, any state prison, any facility. So they essentially, their argument would be, we don't have anywhere to put them. And unless they're shipping them to another state, the teacher at the daycare center is in somewhere in southern Indiana right now, and you know, it's a question of where do they go. So they did step one, let's go get them, but two, we have no idea where to put them when we get them, which is just more proof of the terrible planning and execution that they've been doing.
Yeah, and of course Illinois was targeted in part because of its status as a sanctuary state. All right, well, let's turn to some city news. Lots to talk about with the ongoing budget negotiations. But first, Melody, we have to talk about the gift room that keeps on giving. The city's inspector general says it was once again inaccessible. Why is this so hard to get cleared up?
I mean, you would think the mayor's office would learn after the first time, but it seems like they have not. Additionally, they were found to be storing items that are supposed to be in the gift room, but were not located in the gift room. And so, I don't know, we'll see a third time around. Will they actually get it right and have everything located where it needs to be? Will they let people in? You know, I believe it's once every 3 months they allow visitors to come and inspect everything that's in there. I feel like this is something that's really simple to get down with the administration, but it just seems like they haven't been able to stick the landing here yet.
You know, you have to imagine, Hillary, with everything that's going on with, you know, the Operation Midway Blitz, with the city's budget negotiations, this is the last thing the mayor's staff wants to be dealing with, this sort of a headache.
Yeah, I mean, this is just an unforced error, and that's exactly what you don't want when you're in the middle of a more than $1 billion deficit budget crisis.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that deficit, alderpeople forced a special meeting. They want to hear from consultants hired by the city to find cost-cutting measures. You know, Patrick, does pressing the mayor on this, you know, portend another budgeting season that goes right down to the wire?
I could ask my 3-year-old to explain algebra, and he couldn't do it. I don't know that the mayor can do this either. I mean, we're seeing day after day that this is a mayor and an administration that is way out over their skis, and they are having an impossible time trying to. The budget situation sucks. It's terrible. They walked into a terrible situation, but that's where the grown-ups need to show up. And this is an administration that is entirely unprepared and has been entirely unprepared for 2 years now to manage this city budget and have a plan that actually works, one that can work with state law, within state law, that aren't these shining unicorn ideas. He's living in a different reality than what exists on the ground, and that's why you're seeing a budget that's in chaos.
Well, one of the other problems is where the loyalties lie too. I mean, he got elected on the backs of labor, and you know, we're not the only city in the country that faces major budget deficits. Other cities have done this too. Places in California, for example, Los Angeles, San Francisco, have faced serious deficits and have figured out ways to get public sector unions to the table, balancing budgets with some combination of furloughs, layoffs, which no one wants, but in this situation you have to have that stuff on the table leadership needs to set the tone that everyone's going to be sharing in this sacrifice.
All right, don't mince words, you two. You're really holding back tonight. We can't do that. All right, Matt, our colleague Heather Sharon reported this week that Chicago Police Department overspent its budget by $500 million in 5 of the last 6 years. You know, it seems like a chronic problem for CPD and not necessarily alders looking to rein that spending in.
I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to do about it. It's overtime, over every single year. It seems like it's the same problem just over and over and over again. And yes, when they can get away with spending $500 million beyond what they're supposed to do over and over again without penalty, why stop doing it?
Yeah. Well, Melody, you reported this week on a budget item that came as a surprise to the local aldermen. Yes. Tell us about the Greyhound station downtown.
Sneaky. So, as many people might know, the Greyhound station has been on a month-to-month lease for about a year now, and so the future of that facility has really been in limbo here. Lots of people use that station, people from low-income statuses, people with disabilities that can't drive, and seniors, to really get out and around Illinois and through other states. Well, the city is planning to use TIF funds, about $50 million, to buy that facility and rehab it so that the city can maintain a bus terminal of some kind. But, you know, the thing here is that Alderman Bill Conway, who represents the ward where the bus terminal is located, said that this was a surprise. He represents the ward. He had never heard that the city was going to buy this. I actually asked him probably about 2 months ago if he thought the city had an appetite to buy this, and he said no, absolutely not, considering we have a huge budget deficit. But surprise, surprise, he was looking through the TIF waterfall documents provided by the city, and he saw that line item that was snuck in there and was not very happy about it.
I mean, TIFs are for economic development. Can they even do that? Does anyone know?
I think they can use TIFs for a whole slate of things.
Whatever they want. The rules don't count anymore.
You can declare TIFs in surplus and do a whole heck of a lot with them. But I mean, you would think this is something that hypothetically Conway would want to see, you know, knowing that folks do rely on this. But certainly the surprise element of it is a real issue.
It's a surprise element that's an issue. He's not against he's not against keeping the bus terminal or finding a way to keep it. I think something that's important to know about Conway is that he has a strong financial background. He leans a little bit more conservatively when it comes to budgeting. And so his question is, should we really be using this money for this at this moment? Can it wait? Can we find some other maybe private-public partnership to get this deal done instead of just using TIF funds for it?
Yeah, maybe not the best moment to be spending what seems like extra money to some folks. Well, some other city news, Matt. The Chicago School Board has put together its list of finalists for the next permanent school CEO. The interim is reportedly not on the list here.
Yeah, McElleen King did not make the cut apparently for the final 2. Comes a bit of a surprise. She was working in the Johnson administration when she was appointed to replace Pedro Martinez on an interim basis. You would think that she would be more in line with Johnson, that he would probably push more strongly for her to get the job full time, but with the major issue she's faced so far, the district budget, she brought forth one that largely mirrored her predecessor, Pedro Martinez, which was a big reason why the board fired him. It did not include this pension payment. It's an issue that that budget was approved as is without that payment, and it was a surprising decision at the point.
The mayor.
Yes, exactly, and that very well could be why she is not one of the finalists. This board obviously is partially elected. It's not as beholden to the mayor as previous iterations of this board, but at the same time, Johnson still holds a lot of sway with it. He has majority control with appointees and the board president, so if he doesn't want somebody to get the job, he can still have a very large voice in that conversation.
Yeah. Do we know what the timeline is here for the permanent person to be appointed?
It sounds like there could be a decision next week on who that person is going to be. Finalists are going to be revealed soon enough, and then the board is supposed to vote on that contract in December to finally officially make that decision.
All right, it'll be very interesting to see who ends up with that job. It's not an easy one. Right. All right, speaking of someone who's leaving a job, Congressman Chuy García made the very last-minute announcement that he wouldn't be seeking another term. The Trib editorial board had, shall we say, some quibbles with his tactics here. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, you know, Chuy García has been a very outspoken critic of people on the other side of the aisle posing threats to democracy. And with what he did, I mean, you could argue he's becoming the threat. Now, his side of the story is that he recently became aware of some serious health issues. And of course, your health needs to come first. I sympathize with him there, and I don't blame him for needing to make a choice that's right for him. However, the timeline that he presented sort of raises some serious questions. So what he said is that he found out about the situation very late in October. His wife asked him last Tuesday not to run.
Right, who has health issues of her own.
Right.
They've adopted a grandchild.
Right. But that's still over a week before the filing deadline. Now, he didn't announce until hours before that deadline. Somehow his chief of staff miraculously had all the signatures she needed to be able to become the successor of sorts, and I think that's a problem.
Oh, he didn't announce anything until after the deadline, until somebody finally got him on the phone and pressed him on it. This is the worst of our politics. And Garcia is not the only one. Marty Moylan in the suburbs is doing this too in the state house. That you could engineer an ascension, a coronation of your replacement without a primary. Think of all of the talented politicians, the forward-thinking politicians, Democrat or independent or whatever, that live in the 4th District or live in Marty Moylan's district, that would really create a really interesting primary that could have gotten enough signatures to get on the ballot in that last weekend. If he had decided the Tuesday before the deadline, when his wife asked him not to run, that he was out, he should have said so on Wednesday morning, that I'm not running again, and given every single one of those people an opportunity to get on the ballot by the deadline this Monday. He didn't do it to engineer the seat for his chief of staff. That is as bad as it gets in our politics.
Well, and of course, this is a tactic we've seen before, whether it's, quietly gathering signatures to be ready to go, like the chief of staff, or, getting, winning the primary and then stepping down. I mean, does it seem like there's any appetite or any mechanism necessarily to curb this kind of a move?
You ask Democrats in Springfield to do anything that looks like election reform, and it's not going to happen. So I wouldn't get your hopes up. But I mean, I would hope that folks know that the people who are representing them and how they got there, right? I remember back in 2012, Tim Johnson, a congressman downstate, he just stepped away and said, I'm not going to back anybody, go figure it out. After he had filed and won the primary, I think. That's the better way to do it. Open forum, go figure it out. Instead, give somebody a choice, give voters a choice. Instead, this is just, there's no competition now for Patty Garcia, who's no relation.
Yeah. Well, Hillary, speaking of the General Assembly, they passed a measure on this so-called right to die bill. The governor has yet to say what he's going to do. The troop is hoping that he will decline to sign it. Why is that?
Well, obviously, this is a really serious issue. We've heard very good arguments from both sides who make fair points either way. So on the one side, you've got people saying that so many people suffer needlessly in their final days. I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, have either witnessed someone go through that or we know someone who has. On the other side, you have people who say, look, in places where this has been the law of the land for a little bit longer, there have been some turns taken that should give everyone pause. So, for example, a big story earlier this year was a 29-year-old woman in the Netherlands who suffered from depression and other mental health issues, and she decided to take advantage of the rules of Netherlands rules, and she ended her own life. You don't need to be terminally ill to do that in the Netherlands. In Canada in 2021, they also expanded who can take advantage of those rules. So I think what you see start out as a policy born of compassion can sort of take a life of its own. We urged him to veto that.
All right. Well, another big piece of Springfield news, the General Assembly, as we all know, came through with that $1.5 billion in funding for transit. But now the riders won't have to pay higher fares next year, which we had previously seen, budgeted for. Melody, were you surprised to see the reversal there?
I feel like a lot of people made enough noise to where they did the right thing here. Eventually, though, will we see a transit fee increase? It's possible. have to wait until, I believe it's the new board that's going to be implemented, and part of that decision was that the people that will be on that should be able to have say in whether or not the different fees will be raised. So I'm more interested in what will happen a year from now.
Yeah, well, who knows what happens a year from now, but what happened this evening was great with all of you, but unfortunately we are out of time. So our thanks to Matt Masterson, Melody Mercado, Hillary Gowans, and Patrick Fingston. And we're back to wrap things up right after this.
Tonight's presentation of Week in Review is made possible in part by Ann and Rich Carr, BNSF Railway, and Francine and Dr. Anthony Brown. Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation. Additional support is provided by
And that's our show for this Friday night. Believe it or not, the holiday season is upon us. I'm already tired. And if you're feeling festive, check out our list of holiday events in the Chicago area. You can find that at WTTW.com/holiday events. Now for the Week in Review, I'm Nick Blumberg. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay informed. Have a great weekend. Okay, folks going to O'Hare or Midway maybe not having a great weekend. About 100 flights canceled today as the FAA restricts airspace. I hope none of you have any looming air travel.
That's why Hillary flies private.
Yeah, on the Tribune jet. Yes, absolutely.
No, my husband almost got stuck in Denver this week. I was telling Melody earlier. He just kind of...
Well, and we've got, the holidays looming. Does this seem like this might break the stalemate?
If Snap doesn't break the stalemate, then air travel's not going to break the stalemate.
Right, and this is the kind of thing, too, that there's not necessarily a court case that folks can try and force the administration's hand here.
You can't blame people who don't want to show up.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, wishing all a happy and healthy holiday season.